Hello and welcome to episode 14 of the Afterglow podcast. Today we're going to be checking out Abadox, going back to the NES after our previous episode on PlayStation. I kind of like going back and forth between systems. This one is a shooter, but it's a shooter that's like really ignored these days. No one really talks about Abadox. And it's a shame because I think it's one of the best shooters on the NES. Which on the NES had quite a few good shooters, but this one, in my opinion, really stands out. So we're going to listen to the commercial and some music from the game, and then I'll go into my thoughts on Abadox.
It's the grossest thing in the universe! A monster devours your planet in Abadox for Nintendo! Battle inside the beast, fight ugly eyeballs, twisted worms, skeleton fish, guardian ghouls. It is gross!
Yeah, but it's great!
Abadox for your Nintendo!
Alright, so let's talk about my history with Abadox. This game I actually found on a rental just because I saw the box art and I'm like, whoa, that looks cool. I was a big fan of like sci-fi, space exploration, big Star Trek fan, and it's got a picture of a dude in like a astronaut suit almost. Not like the astronaut suit that we're familiar with, but you can recognize it as a sci-fi astronaut suit. And it's fighting this big-looking alien thing. It's like, that looks really cool. So, a little confession here, too. This is probably my first major shooter game I played in the NES. And at the time, I think stuff like Gradius and Life Force were probably more popular. But as far as my experience with this type of game, other than some old like Atari 2600 shooter games, this is probably the first one I played. I'm really glad for that too, because it is so unique. The idea behind it is that your planet has more or less been like eaten by this big space monster thing, and it takes the form of the planet. It turns into a big planet-sized space monster. So I guess after this happens, your fleet attacks it, and it destroys your fleet, and it eats a hospital ship that the princess is on. I guess our planet has a princess, and our hero ends up leaving a ship, and I'm guessing it's like a derelict at this point. And he moves in to take on this alien. I think its name is Parasitus, by himself. And I put the game in, and the big thing that stood out to me was the graphics, because it was almost like body horror in a way. It's something that I had never seen before on the NES. You've got these, detached eyeballs flying at you. The first sub-boss is a it's like a skeleton dog thing. And then you beat it, and you actually fly inside this alien and start, like, tearing it apart from the inside out. You actually, you fly by the tongue, and it's got saliva dripping down that'll kill you. It's got teeth that move up and down that can kill you. And then you get to the first major boss of the game, and his face comes out from the back of a wall inside the alien. It's got these two eyes on stalks that wave around it. It's all shooting at you. And I had just never seen this before. And it is just such a wild, unique look for an NES game. It's something that you really don't see a lot in the NES. You don't see, like, disturbing imagery in the way. So it was really cool to see. And another thing that was cool about this game is that it starts as a side-scroller, but you go to stage 2, and it shifts your perspective to a top-down perspective shooter. And even with it being a top-down perspective, usually if it's top-down, you're moving up the screen. But in this case, you're going down the screen. And it's just a really cool touch. However, I never made it real far in this game as a kid. I think I only could get to stage like 3 or 4, because this game is hard. You've got stuff flying all over the place at you, and the enemies can move fairly quickly, too. So if you don't stay on your toes, you're going to get taken out real quick. There are these little ball power-ups that rotate around your character that can block some incoming fire. Those are necessary, in my opinion. You've got to get those. But I eventually did beat the game as an adult, but oh my god, it's so difficult. And there are cheats you can use if you want to beat the game, but you struggle with it. Load up the cheats, because the levels are fun to experience as well. If you can do it legit, beat it legit, because it's very gratifying to be able to work your way through this game. It's so difficult, but it's really gratifying. Like, you'll get so frustrated, but once you finally get past that part that's stopping you and you get to experience whatever comes past it, it's such a gratifying feeling. But this is one of those games to where it never left the NES. There's no ports, there's no sequels. It's just stuck on the NES. If you want to play it, your only options are either to play it on the NES, find an NES cart, or emulate it. That being said, the game is fairly cheap if you want to actually purchase a copy of it. We can go to eBay right now as I'm recording. Just going to type this real quick. And you can get a copy of Abadox for like $10, $15. So for an NES game in this era, when collecting has gone crazy, it's really dirt cheap. Also, funnily enough, another childhood memory. This game was published by Milton Bradley. I thought that was so weird. I'd never seen this company that I was more familiar with board games make NES games. Come to find out later, they didn't make the game. They just published it. Another company had actually made it. But it was just another thing that made this game kind of stand out for me. But to this day, if you're into shooters, there's not many games that give you the feel that Abadox does. I mean, to a degree, Life Force on the NES tried the whole biomechanical thing, but I feel like Abadox did it better. It's really a shame that to this day, no one really talks about it. As far as, the ultimate shooter on the NES, everyone talks about Gradius. And Gradius is a blast, don't get me wrong. I love me some Gradius. But Abadox did it, in my opinion, and I think it did it better. But it's just an ignored game that no one talks about anymore that I think is a real shame. I really wish that retro gamers would go back, pop this in, and actually experience just an awesome shooter for the NES and something that hasn't really been done the same since. I would love to see a sequel, to be honest. I know we never will. This IP is dead as a doornail. But the game is an absolute banger. I would highly recommend anyone who hasn't given this a play yet, go play it. Any way you can. If you gotta emulate it, emulate it. It's whatever, because the game is just an amazing shooter. And a lot of it is atmosphere, too, because your player's sprite, he's big, and there's bullets everywhere, so it's very, very easy to take hits. Easier than Gradius, in my opinion. I think that you've got the ability to dodge a lot easier in Gradius than you do in Abadox, but that doesn't make Abadox worse. It makes it more difficult, but it does not make it a worse game by any means. But as far as actually purchasing the game, I was unable to even find this game except from this random rental store in, I believe it was Princeton, Indiana. I rented it 2 or 3 times as a kid. Never managed to find it anywhere else. The other rental store that I've talked about earlier in my hometown where I bought a lot of my NES games as they were trying to get rid of them, never found it there. They don't know if they never got a copy of it or what, which is kind of funny because they had so many NES games. The NES had a library some 700 some odd games, and I swear this rental store probably had 150 to 200. And whenever they started selling off their NES games, I probably bought between 50 to 75 of them. But until I started collecting as an adult, I never got a copy of this game. And I finally got a copy, and not too proud to admit, I game genied it for a little bit, and it took me a while to be it legitimately, but I finally did. But I cannot stress enough, go play this game. Other than that, we're going to close this out with more music from Abadox. Thanks for listening, and I hope to see you next time.